Hello and welcome back to In Conversation with Jaswant Singh, making an assessment of President Barack Obama's visit to Mumbai and New Delhi. We were talking about the nuclear thing.
That's right.
Yeah, we were talking about the UN Security Council.
There are two references to it in his speech to Parliament. It's astute of you to make out the distinction between the two, but it's also necessary to understand it. The reason why this announcement has been accompanied by the euphoria that it has meant, including of your fraternity of the press, is firstly, everything seemed about this visit seemed to be hinged on this. Secondly, because President Obama, prior to visiting here in Washington, had said it's a complicated issue. Thirdly, in the press conference, when asked about it, he said, I'm going to refer to it in the Parliament. This was naturally evolutionary, if I might put it, by a visiting dignitary to raise expectations of a particular announcement. Naturally, everybody got focused on this. The first is to welcome India when it sits on the Security Council. You're right. At the beginning of January in 2011. The second reference is we look forward in the years ahead to a transformed, reformed, etc., etc. But India also wants a transformed United Nations Security Council. The support here, look forward, is not opposing, but there's a passive support here. I'm not comparing, I'm not being churlish or small-minded about it, but in this harsh world of diplomacy, one needs to lace everything with realism. He has said we look forward to. We won't, that implies that they won't oppose it, but they haven't opposed it up till now. But it also says we won't go out of our way to support it, because as a difference, for Japan, for example,
Right.
In Japan's case, the United States has said we strongly support. In India's case, it's we look forward to, which is fine. The second thing I wish to say is that in any event you require 2/3 vote. Thirdly, it is my personal view. I'm not speaking as a party man here. The party could well have a different viewpoint. It's my view that India needn't keep fishing for it. It's an economic development, international expansion of international relations, which will bring this about. In due time, it will come about. But there's no point in India wanting to enter the UNSC as a second-class citizen. You can't come into the dining room, which means you don't have the veto. You can sit in the veranda of the club. No, thank you. You want to go?
No, to reduce the whole thing to its lowest common denominator, there is another aspect. By making an ambiguous statement like this, the President has given an opportunity to Pakistan to immediately come out with a huge, big rejoinder and saying, now what has happened is the following. He has made a non-announcement to which has been a ball thrown up tossed like this, which Pakistan has then slapped down, thereby and the media says, oh, anything that Pakistan slaps down so hard is damn good for us, thereby silencing us on many of the issues on which we can make noises, and we have to make noises. That's the other take.
You know, I'd too much preoccupation with what Pakistan says, does not do.
The announcement, I mean, there's a huge statement.
I follow. I'm sure there is an announcement. It would be unnatural if they didn't react. But we need to recognize that it is a step forward.
Yes.
It's an announcement made in India, in the Indian Parliament, by the President of the United States of America. I don't belittle it. Realistically, I assess it as a step forward, a welcome step forward. But it's come accompanied by conditionalities. If India must recognize Burma. We call it Myanmar, they continue to call it Burma. And what we should do in Burma or should not do. Or for example, what we should do with Faras, Iran. That we expect India to do this, because the reality is, these are the figures. We have voted only about 20% of the time with the United States of America in the United Nations.
Yes.
The rest of the time we haven't found it possible to vote. So
we haven't found it possible to vote with them.
That's right.
Right.
So as a US president, he's well within his rights to say, do this. When this happens, when you are in UN Security Council, even now it applies to even the non-permanent membership.
Yes.
It of course will apply.
There is somewhere between the lines is a message that you are on probation. Let us see during these 2 years how you perform in that slot, and that will add marks, or we will deduct marks from your performance over there.
Well, I won't use the word probation, but the president has been quite candid himself. He says, if I could, in all candor, say...
We are equals. And I got a sense that, we are talking like equals. I have a feeling that the chemistry between him and Manmohan Singh is terrific. I think he does really respect Manmohan Singh for his fine intellect and so on. It's not just lip service. But having said that, he then introduces so many caveats. Look east. On China, there are things between the lines in.
There always are.
For instance, he says, let you and us work together on joint projects in Africa. Now, without being offensive to China, it is because China has overrun Africa, and if we can join our forces, I think it's a very good project.
Firstly, I don't think the United States really needs India for assistance in Africa. For that matter, India has been assisting various things. We have a large Indian expatriate population, Kenya, Uganda, South Africa, even in West Asia, West Africa. But it's a step forward. If we work together, what do we work together in? India is not unpopular in Africa, in the whole of Africa. It's a vast transformation, say.
Just one thing he has made for the first time in an American president, okay, if you spot it differently. First time a US president is almost referring to our non-aligned phase with a degree of nostalgia. He says, you have played a role in world affairs. You did support in the whole process of decolonization, and you seem to have taken a back seat as a democracy, and then he brings Myanmar in, for instance. Now, India, if we are talking as equals, I don't think many things can be said openly, but surely something like democracy in Cairo is not the world's most democratic state. In Saudi Arabia is not the world's most democratic state, for heaven's sake. And the country is, he talks of stealing of an election in Myanmar, but his own members of his government resigned in Afghanistan because an election had been stolen. So therefore, the double standard that continues, if we can somewhere stand up and say, look, sir, we're talking like equals, the honest fact is this.
No, there's a there's a corresponding reality. The world is not as it ought to be. It is as it is. And in the harsh, hard world of realpolitik, the United States has often had to do things, or has done things, which really run counter to all the possible democratic norms. President Obama knows it, India knows it. I cite the example of Iran because that to me was a classic example, remains. It laid the foundation of the tearing apart of the relation between these two countries. That is Mossadegh's removal.
But we can't go into that history.
No, we can't. And therefore, whereas democracy is really an answer to great many of these, but Afghanistan will never become an example of Jeffersonian democracy.
Can't.
And the United States of America has worked with our neighborhood and in all kinds of situations.
Look, we know the United States of America is in a little bit of a jam. We have talked on this before. Yeah. They can't leave Afghanistan, and therefore they can't leave Pakistan because they need supply lines there. All of that is good, but I think what he has gone away celebrating and what he will say when he lands in Washington, D.C., that he say, look, I have come back at least with 50,000 jobs for you.
75,000.
In fact, 60,000 jobs have already been created.
Right.
So
good for the United States.
Well, it's that we can be benefactors, but there's another little caveat. The world is in turmoil. We haven't noticed it. The United States is printing 600 billion currency notes of dollars, and the world is talking about going back to the gold standard. This is not the debate here. This is the debate in Europe. Jaswant, thank you very much. These conversations will never end. There is no end to the things in the heart. To watch other episodes of In Conversation with Saeed Naqvi, log on to newsx.com/with Saeed. Please leave your feedback on Twitter or Facebook.